Welcome to Nerd Stop, your one-stop shop for all things nerd.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of Nerd Stop Podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm joined by my two beautiful co-hosts, Spencer.
Hey there, ho there, hi there.
And Michael.
Hola.
So today we're going to be going over what it means to us to be a nerd and kind of like when we first realized it and maybe tie in a couple of our interests into our discussion. So first off, we're going to go with Spencer. What does it mean to you to be a nerd?
Okay, well, I mean, when I really started getting into nerddom, I think, is when I saw a re-showing of Episode 4 in the theaters when it was sometime in the early 2000s. I was kind of young. And that kind of just ignited so many things. Like, that's where my interest in Star Wars started. And then the flames kind of got fanned from there. You know, I started getting into, all kinds of sci-fi and fantasy and other things. So what I've really enjoyed about being a nerd in general is, in like middle school, and maybe a little bit in high school, we grew up at the time when it was not cool yet to be a nerd. So it was a little hard, especially elementary school. I know it's kind of calling back, but I mean, it was kind of difficult. But what I really enjoyed now, and what I enjoyed at the time too, was the people I met through nerddom. When I was in the Air Force, I had a Warhammer 40K background picture on my phone, on my computer, and this guy came walking by, Garcia, and he goes, "Hey, is that Warhammer 40K?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro, you had a 40K? Yeah, bro, me too." So next thing you know, we had like 6 or 7 people, and every Friday, Saturday night, we'd be playing Warhammer 40K, playing Dungeons & Dragons, and it was really cool. And I mean, not to mention, Josh, I met you through common interest.
X-Play.
Yes, X-Play. Tell the cute little story here. We were in 7th grade in middle school, and Mrs. Wildrunners, her homeroom, and we're going around naming shows that we liked, and I had written X-Play on this piece of paper in big letters, and my idea was when it came around to me, I was going to hold it up and be like, X-Play! And lo and behold, it gets around to Josh, who's sitting exact opposite side of me in this room, and he goes, "Yeah, into X-Play," and I go, X-Play! And then the rest is history. So, yeah, I got a lot of different fandoms, but it really started young for me, and I just really love having something to escape to, have all these things to be interested in, and the people I've met.
All right, yep. Definitely, I can definitely relate with that. Mike, what about you? So when did you kind of realize that you were a nerd?
I think it also just started young. My older brother was always sick, and so was I for a long time, and we spent a lot of times indoors just playing video games. And I realized I was a lot more into the lore and story of games as opposed to just playing them, and then fell into just kind of fantasy genre books, Lord of the Rings style things, and kind of evolved from there. I went into things like anime that were more fantasy-based, like the classics of Inuyasha, Fullmetal Alchemist, stuff like that. And then going from there, just kind of exploring, I guess, and going to things like WoW, going to kind of really anything to escape. And then just realizing I didn't give a shit about most of the stuff that other guys our age really cared about. I didn't care about sports, didn't care about football, didn't care about cars. It was literally just all the fantasy cool stuff, get lost in a story, get lost in a book. That was more interesting to me than anything else. And I think that's when I really realized that I was a nerd, because I didn't share common interests with any other person, really. And again, middle school, about 7th grade, when you, me, and Spencer kind of shared common interests. Spencer and I were in band together, and you and I played WoW, so it's kind of fell in place real easy there.
Yeah, we all kind of bonded over being nerds.
Yeah. And it just started, mostly video games. It was really how it was the main common interest, and it just branched off from there.
Yeah, you and I first realized, like you said, we struck up a friendship because of X-Play, which is obviously, for people that don't know, is a video game review show on the old G4, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and we're talking about the X-Play back in the day when it was just Adam Sessler in an arcade, like the original ones.
The old X-Play. Was that Extreme Play?
Yes, that's right.
But we bonded over initially video games, but it turns out we had a lot more common interests than just that, which I'm sure you listeners will come to realize. Like, we share a lot of stuff, probably with you guys too. But we also all have like our different interests. As for me, when I kind of realized I was a nerd, I think I was always one. I don't think I necessarily had like a term for it though, growing up. So yeah, like you guys were both saying, as a kid, I wasn't really into the same thing that other kids were in. Mike was saying sports. Was never a big fan of sports, playing them, watching them. No matter what it was, I didn't really like anything to do with sports. I was into stuff like my NES that I got when I was 9, right? Metroid was one of the first games I ever beat. Loved playing that, and didn't really like going outside. Played a lot of Contra. Didn't actually end up beating that until I was 18, and I got that when I was 9. So spent at that point half my life trying to beat one game because it's tough as nails without using the Konami code. But no, so I mean, just growing up, didn't really realize that I was a nerd. I just knew that I liked stuff that was different from what other people liked, and didn't really have a lot of friends. But the group of friends that I did have, they weren't into like the same stuff I was into. They were into like cars and I don't know, whatever 6th and 7th grade kids were into. And then I moved schools and I ended up in the same school as you guys, and that's when I kind of like built up that whole nerd community when Spencer and I met, and then through Spencer I met Michael, and we all became these great friends. Yeah, like they were saying, we ended up sharing those common interests. And I think it wasn't really until I met you guys that I realized, like, oh, there's a whole community around this thing. It's people that call themselves nerds. And I think that's about it for when I kind of realized it was 7th grade, and since then it's just continued. So on that note, we talked about kind of like when we realized we were nerds. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is like, with you guys, what does it mean to be a nerd? What is being a nerd to you? We'll start with Michael this time.
I think being a nerd to me is I don't think it's necessarily standing out from the crowd so much as it is being deeply passionate about certain things. I think everybody's a nerd in their own right. I think somebody who's super into sports is nerdy in their own right. I don't think being a nerd is something that's classified to just liking video games. I think it really comes down to those people who are, just so much more passionate about things than you see other people with. The classic thing is somebody who takes it to a whole nother level. They might have tattoos or memorabilia or pop figures, or they have a humor based around these things, so on and so forth.
I felt like you were calling me out with the whole pop figures thing.
Well, and the tattoo thing. Are you kidding?
And the tattoo thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've got a bunch of Japanese tattoos because I like Japanese culture because I'm a total weeb.
Yeah, you're pretty weeboo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking
so
weeb.
I mean, I don't think it's so much just being into video games or quote-unquote nerdy shit, so much as it is just being deeply passionate about one thing that you really enjoy, and you don't really give a shit about what people say about it.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's being nerdy is being able to get on a topic and just being able to talk about it. Like, and I agree with you that it's a passion. And, some passion might be greater than others. Like, I'm a big history nerd, and I can talk about, history all day. And actually, I'll get into the stories later. But it's being passionate, and it's being able to talk about these things a lot. And it's finding that, for me, a big part of it, too, on top of everything Michael just said, it's the community around this. It's being able to find these other people that have these common interests. And, the more obscure the interest and the more you're into it, the better. For example, I'm really into Taylor Anderson's Destroyer Man series. Super into it. I have never met someone in person who has also read that series. So the day I do, you best believe I am getting their phone number and everything, and we're just going to be talking about it for days.
Probably get married.
You probably get married, regardless of gender. So, yeah, no, it's... That's it is the passion, and I also agree that you can be nerdy for other things. Like my father, he wouldn't consider himself a nerd, but he plays a lot of Skyrim. He knows a lot about sports, and he's a music nerd. And I a little bit of that rubbed off on me. I mean, you play any song before 1990, and he'll be able to tell you the band, the album sometimes, what happened to the lead singer after that album, things like that. So that's it. That's my gin-fueled rant on what that means.
No, I mean, honestly, I kind of view it the same way as you guys do. That whole, being a nerd is having that passion and that love for something that maybe not a whole lot of other people do love, and you do end up finding that community. Like, with me, I mean, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and I mean, yeah, not one of the more obscure things out there, but it's still, there's not a lot of people that you meet just regularly that know Doctor Who.
Yeah, within the general nerd community, the people who are into Doctor Who do have their own. They're kind of a smaller sect compared to some other things, I'd say.
Oh yeah, definitely. Whovians are I think they're a smaller group. They're a loud minority though. You can always tell
Yeah.
because they have some ridiculous 7-foot scarf, or they have a blue dress or something that says "My other car is the TARDIS." And I mean, Spencer, you were talking about making friends off of just an image on your phone. The same thing. I mean, I kind of have a story similar to that about finding nerds in the workplace. It was when I was in MOS school in Fort Leonard Wood. I just had like a tiny deck of Magic cards because there was a game studio out there, and I was still playing pretty heavily into Magic at the time. And we had a health and comfort inspection, and one of our gunnies ended up finding my Magic cards. He questioned me about it. Kind of made fun of me, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Because people that aren't necessarily into the stuff, they don't understand. They're gonna make fun of it. But a couple other people that were there in that MOS school with me found out that I had those Magic cards, and they were really relieved because they're like, "Oh my God, big Magic fan." And then we ended up having like me and I think like 3 or 4 other people on the second deck of our barracks constantly playing Magic in our off time. But kind of rambling right there. So I mean, yeah, what I'm trying to say is I think being a nerd is having that passion, no matter like what it is. Like you were saying, you can be nerdy about other things. It's just I think it takes a certain kind of people with a certain type of interest that are classically nerd that actually take the time to call themselves a nerds. But you will hear some people refer to themselves as like sports nerds or car nerds or anything like that. So I mean, they're out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be like somebody that likes Battlestar Galactica or something like that. But it's just somebody with an intense passion and an intense love for something.
You know, and on that note, I want to add too, for anyone who feels kind of isolated in their nerddom, well, without a doubt, you can find somebody who shares that same passion.
We are out there. Yeah.
Yeah. If you ever feel alone in your own passion towards something, you can hop online and find 100 other people who are just as nuts about it as you are, which I think is something really, really amazing.
And the number one thing that you can pick up from both, the stories that both me and Josh have told now is that the best way to find these people and to make some really good friends out of nowhere is to go to conventions. Is to not, it's just to not hide what you're interested in. You don't be ashamed of it. Yeah, people make fun of you, and I have stories about that too. But it's so what? You're interested in what you're interested in. They're interested in what they're interested in. I don't see what I get kind of mad when people make fun of people for their interests. Like we had one guy, me and Mike were at the bar, and a guy comes in, and it was a Sunday night. Everyone's talking about football, and he comes in, oh yeah, sports, making fun of these people for enjoying the football game, and I'm like, dude, let people enjoy things. What's wrong with you? So what I'm saying is just don't hide. You wear your Doctor Who shirt. Have your Totoro purse. Put the stickers on your car. Get the tattoos. Don't hide it.
Yeah, let that nerd flag fly.
Absolutely.
Mike, you got anything else to add?
No, I think Spencer summed it up perfectly there. Just love who you are and be good with it.
All right, so one kind of final topic before we go ahead and wrap up this inaugural episode. We're going to go ahead, we're going to just kind of go around the table and list off our kind of our fandoms or our passions, maybe some of the more nerdier hobbies that we have, just so you can kind of get an introduction to all of us and see what we like and see if there's anything you can identify with. Obviously, we're not going to go over all of them because that would take hours upon hours upon hours for us to list off our fandoms. So we'll go ahead and start with Spencer this time. Okay,
yeah, I mean, we've already covered Star Wars for sure. A little into Star Trek too, just general sci-fi fantasy, a little classic stuff too, not like, I've read Asimov, and Turtle Dove, this historic fiction. I'm looking over my bookcase right now. Who else? Who wrote Starship Troopers again? Robert A. Heinlein. So a little bit of the classic. That's my major ones. But for hobbies I really haven't talked about, I mean, we're all into board games. Whether it be things like 40K or Star Wars
Dungeons and Dragons,
and of course tabletop RPGs. I'm the perennial DM. I'm actually going to school. Part of my degree is in game design. It's not the entire part of it, but there's a little bit of focus on it. I really love designing dungeon stories. Like I'll spend hours on a design document for a Savage Worlds campaign that'll end up having 4 sessions because everyone gets busy. But then also like history and historic fiction, like I said before, Turtle Dove, really big fan of. That's kind of like the smaller thing. And the one time I've ever run into someone who's into Turtle Dove, like we just talked. Like I was at work, like I was working, and he was a customer, and we ended up just talking about that for a little longer than my manager would have liked. But as we go on, like I'm sure the both of you can say this too, we're going to discover all of the many other things that are down there that we haven't even been able to scratch the surface of with this.
Yeah, for sure. Mike?
I mean, already gone over kind of the fantasy style book, but to delve more into that, medieval fantasy, magic and dragons and stuff, the stories are just so fun to get into. The Ranger's Apprentice series, historical fiction, stuff like that. It's fun to read, and then going further into the history aspect, just ancient history, ancient civilizations, I just love learning about, I love reading about. I've spent hours online just researching random old civilizations that kind of don't play any big role in the history books, but it's fun to learn about. And then going from there, I just spend way too much time playing video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
that
a
is-
problem that we all share.
Yeah. Video games take up our time for other fandoms for sure.
Yeah.
Not a terrible problem though. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a fun escape, and I play video games that kind of fit my fandom. Things like Path of Exile, things like Diablo. There's something fun about immersing yourself into these deep, rich, and kind of dark worlds where there's all this magic, there's all this fighting, and there's this really cool edge to everything. It's just a fun kind of escape from everything else, and what I love most about this is it really just draws me in and lets me relax and also just enjoy the stuff that I've come to be so passionate about.
And the cool thing about being into like the things like this is you're talking about getting engrossed in it. And what I found is the more that you know about these worlds, the more they come alive. So let's take Star Wars, for example. There's so much lore out there. I mean, I'm not even with, the extended universe having been blown up and slowly but surely kind of being retconned into canon. But anyway, with that.
That's definitely something we can talk about in a whole nother episode. That's
true, yeah.
3 or 4 episodes worth of just talking about canon, old canon, and everything like that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that, no, but by all means, stop me before I keep going on that, but I'm just saying, like, being able to know the power output of a twin ion engine, it brings you into the world like no other. So that's why, like, the major fandoms are what they are. I mean, it's awesome to have little small ones, but, like Mikey didn't mention, but you're into Transformers, and you're the only person I've ever met that's as into Transformers as you are.
Man, I can tell you so much about Transformers. I can tell you the literal history of Transformers, the planet, why the Decepticons are the Decepticons, why you don't see flying Autobots that often.
Yeah, and it's
all the weird things, yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. These worlds come alive is what I'm trying to say. The deeper you get, and that's the cool part. Another cool part of nerddom, of your fandom. The more you know, the cooler it gets.
Yeah, the deeper that passion gets, how do I say, it's easier to become even more passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we're also talking about kind of like those whole fandoms and everything like that, and you're talking about these worlds getting older, people liking different things. I mean, even within fandoms, you can end up breaking that stuff down into even more like subcategories. Like, we were just talking about video gaming. Let's break that down a little bit more, because video gaming, yeah, you can say you're a gamer, but then I don't know. I just had my Steam library up on the side, and I just kind of like realize like I like a bunch of different stuff, but there are some people that like they play video games. They're FPS gamers, or they play simulators or something like that. Or Spencer, I don't know, you play a lot of like hardcore simulation or strategy games, stuff that I can't wrap my mind around. But you play. I see looking on this thing, and that's probably about most of what I see on there. Besides, visual novels.
Oh, you got to bring up the visual novels.
Only because we were just talking about it before the show started. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, going back to the whole like being a nerd thing, what it means to us is like even if you say like I'm a fan of this, you can break it down further. Or let's go with Star Wars. That seems to be our big topic of the day.
Yeah. I just saw the new movie, which is why. No
Yeah,
spoilers. Don't say anything. But
don't say anything.
It's fresh in my mind.
I will drive 2,000 miles tonight and drop kick you.
Oh, porgs.
But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so I mean you'll have people like Spencer. I know you're a big fan of like the starships and everything like that, and you love just aviation in general, like for everything. But especially like Star Wars aviation. Whereas I like a lot of the whole. I'm a big fan of the Old Republic, so I like to specialize in my knowledge of the Old Republic, especially the old Sith Empire. And then Michael would like something else. I mean, so even within those fandoms, there are kind of like sub fandoms.
He's the Sith Jedi. He's the historian there.
I just love the history of the Sith and the Jedi. It's so cool. Once you really delve into Star Wars, you can find an actual treasure trove. There's always more stuff to find, which I think is another great thing about Star Wars and some of the bigger fandoms is as you get deeper, you just find more and more stuff. Like I think you could just research Star Wars your entire life and keep finding new stuff. There's just so much content there, and even if you're somebody who doesn't like Star Wars all that much, you might find find something in there that just blows your mind, that just pulls you so much deeper into it. And I think that's a really, really cool and beautiful thing about it. Because you can always find something in there.
I've gone to I like to go to Wikipedia daily and just hit random page because no matter what, I'm finding something new.
I remember doing that in middle school, yeah, with you actually in the computer lab.
Yep. All right, so me, as far as my interests go, I'm the same with these guys. Obviously, big Star Wars fan. Also, I do like the Old Republic, do like the Sith. Also, a huge fan of the Mandalorian. I got that permanently marked on my body.
Can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery, but is it worth it?
As far as like other fandoms go, or other like I guess hobbies, I'm a big pop collector. I collect me and my wife, we collect a bunch of the Funko Pop figures. I'm also a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft and a lot of that classic horror like Edgar Allan Poe as well, along those same lines. As a matter of fact, my most expensive pop figure is a Nerd Cthulhu. There were only 300 of them ever made, and he's worth, I think, right now around $260, so I think that's pretty dope. Other things, big history buff. As a matter of fact, when I was in high school, I would often take, Thursdays and Fridays off, like maybe once a month, and I was a World War II reenactor, reenacted 101st Airborne Division, 301st Glider Infantry Regiment. It was a lot of fun, just reenacting and living through that history. I also got to meet a lot of, like, really cool people, like actual World War II vets.
I'm sorry. Well, one of the people that you met, speaking of nerddom, let's mention the fact that you and me have both met the guy who originally designed all the figures for Dungeons & Dragons, and you met him through reenacting.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I forget his name. I have
Duke,
his card.
Duke Seafried.
Yes.
Duke Seafried. He was one of the guys with Gary Gygax that he was the guy in charge of the 3D models and everything like that when they first became a thing. And how I met him through reenacting is because me and my wife who was my girlfriend at the time, ended up getting into swing dancing. We were taking swing lessons with this older couple, and they brought us to a dance that I think it was the American Legion or something like that. It was a swing dance, but there was there was a swing dance, there was a live band there, and one of the members of the band was Duke Seafried, and I have somewhere a picture of me in a zoot suit standing next to Duke Seafried, and I'm just beaming. And I also have his autograph somewhere around here.
Oh, see, all I got was a card. He gave me his business card.
Yeah, I got an autograph. You should have asked.
I should have.
What else am I into? Obviously Star Wars. I play a lot of WoW. Thanks to Mike, I've gone into Heroes of the Storm. I was playing that before I got here.
Such a fun game.
Yeah, I mean, going through my Steam library too, it's just a lot of stuff. Also a big fan of lore for like anything. Anytime I get into like a new universe, I end up just immersing myself in the lore, and I want to learn everything I can about it. Fantasy, sci-fi. Douglas Adams, Spencer, can't believe you brought him up. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Big fan of Douglas Adams. Brought up Heinlein, but no Adams.
Every time I see lemon-scented napkins, I just get a fear in my gut now.
Yeah, I mean, I bring a towel with me wherever I go. And I think, that's really about it. As we go on and we progress, you'll definitely see we have a lot of varied interests. All right, so before we go ahead and wrap up this episode, I'm going to turn it over to the guys just in case they have any final words. Spencer?
All right, well, I just want to say, this has been, fun recording so far. I think we missed out on some gold between recordings, but I think as we get more comfortable in what we're willing to say on air, I'm just really looking forward to this project, and we'll see where it goes. There we go.
Michael, what about you?
Not too much. Just hope you guys enjoyed the broadcast and feel a little bit more comfortable in your nerddoms.
Absolutely. That's the take-home message. Let your nerd flag fly.
That's our after-school special. If this was the end of a South Park episode, that's the whole fable, like the moral. The moral. That's the word I'm looking for. That's the moral.
I guess what I've learned today is.
Today, guys. Goddamn it! I defaulted to Cartman.
Yeah, right. He never learns anything. That's the point.
As far as me, final messages. I don't really have anything. It's been a pleasure recording with you guys. We definitely need to get together more often. I'm thinking about like a weekly basis. I'm going to go ahead and hand out some contact information. If you want to get a hold of the podcast, you can email us at nerdstoppdc@gmail.com. You can also send the podcast to Twitter at nerdstoppod. Again, that's at nerdstoppod on Twitter. You can send me a personal tweet too, or a DM, you know what I'm saying, at Scrosam on Twitter. That's SKROSAM. As far as these guys go, what was that?
Can you explain that? Scrosam?
Oh yeah, that's my main on WoW.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
thought there was a funny story behind that. All right.
No, that's...
carry on.
I hit randomize until I get a name.
Oh, there you go. All right.
As far as these guys go, they're both hermits, so you can get a hold of them through smoke signals, carrier pigeons, or albino ravens.
Yeah, just throw a message in a bottle somewhere in the ocean. Maybe at one point, I mean, nothing's impossible. We could wash up near us.
One of the Great Lakes.
Yeah, no, water flows into the lakes, right? That goes that way from the ocean.
I didn't ace physics. I think I skipped that one.
I feel
No.
like
Geology?
ocean into Great Lakes is probably not all that plausible. But give it a shot,
I don't know.
guys. We'll
Have you
see.
seen some of those home drone D&D maps? I mean, pretty
What do you
sure
know?
it's possible.
All right, so on that note, I'm gonna say see you later, nerds.
Thank you for choosing Nerd Stop. Have a nice day.